Hi everybody, this week's midweek chat coming up here. I just have to share that I was 20 minutes into the chat and it stopped, the camera stopped. So I went in and I deleted stuff in case it was a storage issue, but hopefully we'll have better luck with this, right? I want to keep my sanity. That's a little frustrating. But anyway, so the good news, I'm bound to be more efficient with my words this time, right? So I'm here. I'm in Eau Claire. This is the Chippewa River. It's just really low right now. So I thought I'd come out on this. This is generally underwater where I'm sitting here. So it's like the lost city of Atlantis. You can see the city public works, the red buildings over there. And the high bridge over there that they're working on to repair. I thought it'd be a nice place to go because you can't always sit here because often if it rains or something, it's underwater. So we had a funeral today. We had a funeral today for Dewey, and Dewey's a good guy. We read that reading from Wisdom. The souls of the just are in the hand of God. He was Native American man. We were so glad to have he and Karen in our parish to to have that richness of their background with us. And he served in the Air Force from 59 to 63. He was very active up in Coudray on the reservation. He was on the Elder Council. He was the rice chief, the rice chief, I think they called it. And many other things. But I'd always see him after Mass. He'd come out because he smoked, and he'd want to get that smoke in right after Mass. So he'd beat me out the door. So I always enjoyed chatting with him after Mass a little bit. He talked about that his wife Karen. I had just a lovely discussion with her. It's world Native American life isn't something I know firsthand at all, and she was sharing some things with me that he really loved all the outdoor things. He was able to spear walleye in the winter with her, and they'd go wild rice harvesting. Right now, this time of year would be probably when they would be out wild rice harvesting, and I don't know what that's like. So I looked that up on YouTube and saw some really lovely videos. Like you have a canoe going through, and someone's sort of steering the canoe and paddling it, and the other person has these two long wooden rods. I was going to call them sticks, but sticks is a little bit of a light of a phrase for it, and kind of would sort of, these long, like, it sounded like marsh reeds, tall things that grow above the water line, and the canoe would go right through all that, and you'd kind of get the reeds over the boat and then knock them with these wooden rods, and all the rice, when it's ripe, would fall off into the canoe, and it'd be further processing. But I thought, what a lovely thing to do with someone, that you love. Go harvesting wild rice close to the land and close to one another. So we had a good send-off for him. I was thinking, one of the things they said about him was he loved to carry flags in parades because he was proud. He was proud of his military service, and so he would carry veterans' flags for kind of civic parades up, I think, more Hayward and Coudray. And in church in June, they'd have a feast of Body and Blood of Christ procession. Body and Blood of Christ, Corpus Christi. And apparently he would carry banners for that parade too, as the Blessed Sacrament was processed through the area. And so on the way out, I just mentioned to them about that. And I said, I think really, we can probably really imagine, it's easy for me to imagine anyway, Dewey leading our procession out of church with a banner. And what would that banner be? It would be banner in the victorious banner of Christ, victory over death. Sometimes you see in art Christ holding a banner. It's like a white flag. I think sometimes it's a cross, like a long elongated cross, and on the top where the crossbar is, there's just like a white banner, a white flag. And it's Christ, it's the victorious. I'm victorious over death. I've broken the chains of death. And so to imagine Dewey leading us out of church at his funeral mass, waving that flag, that banner of victory over death, brought a tear to my eye. Good guy. Worked for XL Energy, NSP for years and years and years. So we had 2 deaths this week. So Elaine Lambrecht died on Sunday. I don't know if you heard about that awful car accident on West Claremont, the east-west part of Claremont, not by St. James, but farther around the University Drive lights. She was just minding her own, just enjoying a ride home from the store, I guess, parked at a stoplight. And something happened to the driver behind, didn't notice anyone was in front of him or her, and didn't slow down, and 2 people died, and one was Elaine. There's some COVID issues in the family that someone has it now, so someone from out of town. So the funeral will be on October 9th for Elaine. But I know she loved being at St. James, and we will miss her. The other person was Loretta Stoltz, and that's Steve's wife, and she died on Monday. And she had some issues with her health and other things that made it difficult for her to come to Mass, so Steve often came to Mass on his own. But I had a few interactions with her, and she's just a lovely, lovely person. And on grounds cleanup day that we have every spring, she would come. And she had a way with gardening, and Steve showed me her meditation garden where they live, and it's just beautiful, just beautiful. The different plants, she would trim some of these like bonsai, like keep a pine tree sort of miniature, and lots of regular kind of plants for butterflies to use and bees to pollinate on, and just really beautiful. And she took my, I have this tree, I'll tell you about my tree if you don't mind in a second. I have this Jerusalem pine tree, and it grows because it's a tree that can be really big. And I keep it in a pot. I want to keep it small. I'm not skilled enough to like do a bonsai, or I never put in the work to do that. And anyway, she came by with her clippers. Said, "Well, let's get rid of this. We get rid of this." And there was this one big dead branch coming off, and I was just sure she was going to hawk that. She goes, "Why don't we leave that? It adds a little character. It's a little unusual to have this big dead branch. It's just kind of a stick without any needles on it." I thought, okay. But I always think of her when I see that. It does add a little character, I think, to the plant. Anyway, we don't have a time yet for her funeral mass, but I remember her fondly. Let me just tell you about this Jerusalem pine. So when I first went to Israel, I loved it immediately, and I came back, and I saw an advertisement in the Jerusalem Post, I think on the internet, and what happened? Oh, I ordered it. It came in a little tube. It came from California, but the seed was from the Holy Land, and I thought it was really cool. And it came on February 14th, 1997. So wasn't that great? Valentine's Day, priests don't, we don't make too much out of Valentine's Day. So it was kind of fun to have that treat. But I don't even think I really realized it was Valentine's Day, because I head down to West Grand Avenue in Eau Claire. I was living at the University Ecumenical Religious Center at the time with Father Shevs. And he knew this guy, Frank. I think his name was Frank. Really good guy. I'd met him a few times. Florist and plants. I think they got a lot of their plants from him for church. And anyway, I met him, I found him, I said, "Hey, I got this tree, and I'm wondering what I should plant it in, how I should take care of it. Do you have any advice?" And so I had all these, I just wanted all this, I was willing to buy a pot or something, so it wasn't just, free advice. But he just seemed too busy to care too much about what I was saying. And I so I was a little bit put off, but I wasn't really judging him, but I was a little disappointed, let's just say, when I left. And then I got home and I thought, well, it's Valentine's Day. Florists are a little bit busy on Valentine's Day. They don't need this celibate guy wanting advice on his tree. So anyway, that's what happened. But what is it? 97, 24 and a half years later, the tree still grows. It's a 3-season tree, so I bring it in the winter. I put lights on it. At Christmas, it's my Christmas tree. And it's pretty good. But then I get to Israel 2 years ago, and I lived there for 4 months, and I see all these pine trees. And I'm like, yeah, I have one of those pine trees. I'm kind of proud of myself, I feel connected to the land. And then we get this talk about ecology and the land. And guess what all environmentalists in Israel don't like? They don't like these trees. Why? They're not native. They brought them in. So after Israel settled after the 1948 war, and they're kind of settling, they want to reforest the land. And someone had this idea to bring these pine trees in. And the pine trees love the climate, and they went all over the place. But they weren't indigenous. Indigenous trees there, like cedars and olive trees, are huge. Sycamore trees like Zacchaeus. carob trees. I'm trying to think of what else. But those would be more. But the thing about these pine trees is they suck all this water out of the land, and the water is this premium. They need water. You know, they lead the world in desalinization. They get water out of the sea because water is so scarce there. It's a high priority for water. So they don't like these trees because they take all the water. So some people even said we got to get rid of these Jerusalem pine trees. Anyway, so I have this tree that I thought was this great symbol of Israel, and then I find out it's a nuisance in Israel. But it's my tree, and I'll keep taking care of it. Okay, so hey, what's this? Maybe you have one of these in your yard. Oh. Pretty awesome, right? Lilacs in September, come on. Isn't that great? So it's already a little bit past prime. You can see the browning on that end. But still smells like really, really good. What can I say about it? It's a second chance at life. When they bloom, this is at the rectory. There's this long hedge of lilacs, probably about 20 yards, 60 feet, 70 feet of lilacs. And, well, they didn't bloom very well in May, and then the rest of the year it looks like they were dying or dead. And then suddenly they're blooming in September. I'm like, well, what's going on with that? And I guess other people had a similar experience. So it must have been the weather cycle for some reason. But to me, it's a great symbol of a second chance. They didn't do so well in May, so God gave them another bloom in September. Like God gives us second chance after second chance after second chance. So we may not be fully alive in God in a given year or a given month or right now, today, but we have a chance to bloom for God tomorrow, So it was a nice little sign, and also a sign that we should give other people second chances too, not give up on them, So. There was a story, an Ann Tyler story. It was in a book called Saint Maybe, where this guy, was it his brother? I'm probably get some of the facts wrong, but basically, his brother and he had a fight, and his brother went off, and they heard the car screech, and his brother got mad and drove recklessly and crashed and died. And so the surviving brother was just ridden with guilt, and he goes to this chapel, a storefront chapel in downtown Baltimore. It's called the Church of the Second Chance. And he hears the preacher. He sits in the back. He hears the preacher about how God forgives. Jesus died for your sins. You can be redeemed. You just have to lay down your life and surrender to God's grace and mercy. He'll forgive you, give you a second chance. And so he's very moved by that, because that's what he needs to hear, And so then he goes up to the pastor and he says, is it true? Is everything you say true? Do I really, this is what happened in my life, and I really need to start over. Can I just start over and all those sins are wiped away and everything's okay? And the pastor says, of course not. I couldn't believe it. I thought he was going to say, yeah, that's the good news of Jesus Christ. He says, of course not. And I was like, okay. And then I keep reading, and he goes, you have to make reparation. It's like the forgiveness isn't just free. You have to make reparation. And so in the book, the reparation is that his brother that died had like 2 kids, and we wouldn't have parents now. Because I guess, I don't know, the mother must have been absent or something. And so for his penance, for his reparation, he became the guardian. He took over raising those children. Anyway, it was an interesting, when I hear about getting a second chance, I believe, we offered second chance after second chance. But that book was interesting. Even a real kind of a fundamental evangelical preacher said, well, no, you got to do a penance. You got to make things right with God too, God doesn't, hold this against you. He's not going to pin you. There's forgiveness. But now how are you going to respond to that? Let's see. Because I had that taping problem. Let's see, where's my, okay. Let's get some Parish news out here. So Miss Cindy Saracen, right? She was our preschool teacher for years, and she just retired from that this year, but she still wanted to do a Sunday daycare with some faith enrichment for 4-year-olds, and we meant to send letters out to all 4 families with 4-year-olds, but some people on our staff said, no, I know some of the 4-year-old, and they never got a letter because they would love for that to have that opportunity. Well, anyway, in the letters that went out and the sign-up sheets we had, just two people thought that would be helpful to them, and she really says to really make it kind of worthwhile, she likes to have 6. And I think we had 27 families that had 4-year-olds. And so I think during COVID times, a lot of our younger families maybe are not coming to church physically. We hope you're connecting with us virtually. But so she decided not to do it. But from our staff meeting today, I thought, well, maybe people just didn't get the word. So I said, I'll just mention it. If you have a 4-year-old, if you know anyone who does, we have this, championship level Bible daycare that can happen during a Sunday Mass. I forget if it's the 8 o'clock Mass or the 10 o'clock Mass. I bet you it's the 10, just because families wake up later, but I'm not sure. I think I mentioned the loop. Knights of Columbus loop the whole church now. So if you have a hearing aid with a loop coil in it, a T coil in it, you can sit anywhere in the church now, and it'll amplify right into your ear. Sorry, last week, I guess a lot of people didn't hear so well on my chat last week because the cars were going by all the time, so it's a little more quiet now, maybe some gusts of wind, but hopefully it's a better listening experience for you. We got a retreat coming up for our middle school students on Tuesday, October 10th. The NET team, it's a traveling group of young adults, come and put on a retreat, so that'll be good. November 7th, we're going to have our ravioli, our Italian dinner, I think takeout. Beth Cerny, another one of the dinners that she's orchestrating, so it's homemade pasta and fillings and everything. So that'll be good. You'll hear more about that as time comes, but start whetting your appetites already. Diocesan Annual Appeal. So I wrote a letter right after Dewey's funeral and before I came out here, and sent it to La Crosse. It'll come with your diocesan appeal. So every year the diocese sends all the Catholics in the diocese a letter asking you to give to the appeal, and every parish has a quota that we have to pay in. So our quota this year is like $96,000. So we haven't really done very well at meeting our targets in these past several years. So I hope we can. I know it's just these are hard times. Not only are some people financially challenged. What I said in my letter was I think probably a lot of people are feeling disconnected from parish life, and maybe if they're not doing video mass or checking out these chats or checking out the Friday emails that Kelly sends, or maybe feeling disconnected, and then the next thing they get is a letter saying, "Can you give it money?" And it's like, so I'm afraid for that. I don't want to be typecast in people's minds as just kind of a money grubbing parish, but it is an obligation every year. This Diocesan Annual Appeal campaign. So. You will be getting that letter. Hope you read my letter that's in the cover. Anne says it's a good letter, but I'm afraid a lot of people might just chuck it as soon as they see it's for the Diocesan Annual Appeal. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Yeah. Connected, I don't know. I remember when this pandemic started, we talked about, trying to use this downtime to maybe deepen our prayer lives, get familiar with Scripture. When we're not able to come to Mass physically, and are there other ways, even though that's a loss, are there other ways we can spend more time with our family? Can we make some pluses out of these minuses? And I think there was a real intense effort to do that initially, and so I don't know where people are at with that right now. And it's still going on, and to find a way to engage. And if there's some way that you feel like the parish is letting you down, and something we feel we could do something about, then we certainly will try. We have a staff that wants to be there for people. We have lost some families to other parishes recently, and that's always, to a pastor, it's always kind of a kick in the stomach. But I guess in the end, you just sort of pray that people end up where they're supposed to be and where they are drawn into deeper communion with Christ. And maybe that's not St. James for everybody. So we kind of wish people peace. And I think a lot of reason for a lot of that is kind of COVID-related stuff. So, I think we're just trying to be as responsible as we can with our restrictions and asking that you wear a mask. And I think when we look at the statistics and amount of infections that are happening, and even deaths in our area. And we want to be careful. So we hope that you understand that. But maybe there's other ways we're just not. I just had this sinking feeling that people are feeling more and more disconnected, and how are we going to kind of reclaim vibrancy in parish life? So, hey, we got some big saints days coming up. I'll maybe just close a little bit with that. So today's the Feast of the Archangels, Feast of Raphael. Is in the book of Tobit. If you ever just on a lark, just want to do something different in the Bible, I mean, you're not familiar with the book of Tobit, you read it. It's a short book. It's like 5 chapters or something like that, maybe 8 at the most, maybe 9. And I don't know. It's often a wedding reading, because Tobiah sees Sarah and he love at first sight, wants to marry her, and Sarah gets all the right permissions from her kinspeople, and so they're going to get married. But the only problem is she's been engaged 7 times, and each of the 7 times on the wedding night, the groom died, fell over, died. And so they pray. The wedding reading that's often chosen from Tobit is on the night of their wedding, Sarah and Tobit rose and prayed that deliverance might be theirs. And they pray this beautiful prayer about inviting God into their marriage and how they are marrying for a noble purpose. And people often choose it because of the beauty of the reading. I don't think they know the background all the time, that it's that Tobiah doesn't die. But it's a good way. Anyway, Raphael in that book, I think it's Tobit. Tobiah's father goes blind, and Raphael somehow finds, I think on a kind of a riverbed like this, finds a fish and takes the liver out and makes a little paste out of it and puts it on Tobit's eyes, and then goes away for a while, and he comes back and he unpeels the liver paste from Tobit's eyes, and Tobit can see. So it's Raphael. It means the healing of God, I think. Gabriel is the other archangel, one of the other archangels. Of course, Gabriel's the most famous one, I think, because of the story of Mary announcing to Mary that she'll bear a son, name him Jesus, and it'll be by the Holy Spirit that she bears a son. I think he's the one that appears to Joseph, though maybe that angel is unnamed. But angels are often the messengers. Angel in Hebrew is melcha. It means messenger from heaven. And so that's Gabriel. He's pretty famous. And then Michael, or Michael, he is famous. He's often with the sword because he's the one who defends the honor of God. And so the story there, I'm sure you've probably heard it, but angels are there to serve God. They're flying around the throne of God, praising God. How can we serve you and praise you today, oh God? That's what angels do. And one angel said, "What are we doing this for? Why do we have to serve God? Let's just do what we want to do, you know?" And that angel's name was Lucifer. And so he kind of got his fellow angels that just wanted to do what they wanted to do and not serve God. And they started to have a coup in heaven. And then the leader of the God's defense forces was Michael. And they had a battle, and Michael and his forces defeated Lucifer and his forces, and Lucifer fell from heaven, right? So Michael, the word Michael is three Hebrew words put together. Michael. It means who, cha means like, and el is God. And so, and the verb is sort of implied in that. So it's Michael, who is like God? It's a rhetorical question. Nobody's like God. Don't pretend to be like God. Don't serve yourself. Serve God. God gave you life. You owe everything to God. So serve Him with joy and dignity and thanksgiving in your heart. That's the story of Michael. Tomorrow's Feast of St. Jerome. He's a biblical scholar. I think 4th century, I got to walk around the caves where he translated the Bible from Hebrew and Greek into Latin. And that was inspiring. But what I think of with Jerome mostly was he was crabby. He was kind of a nasty guy to people. And it just shows us that holiness comes in all stripes. Even someone that maybe is a little crabby to us doesn't mean they're not holy. It doesn't mean we should judge them as bad. There may be like St. Jerome. They glorify God in different ways than personal kindness. So, and then we have, October 1st, isn't that Teresa of Lisieux, the little flower? died very young. I always wanted to be a nun. The little ways of giving God glory, little ways of serving. France. She's the patron saint of missionaries, though she was never a missionary because she prayed so much from her convent for missionary. It's kind of neat. Power of prayer. October 2nd is guardian angel, so more angels. Each of us is given a guardian angel, right? October 3rd, I'm not sure, I don't think it's a feast day, but it's a Sunday this year, so we don't. And October 4th, of course, is St. Francis. So who can beat that? You know, I just think what I love so much about St. Francis is he didn't compromise with the gospel. He saw what it said he should do. He felt that's what he should do, and he did it. He gave away everything he had, and he gave it to the poor, and he lived with the poor. And he just trusted in God and just tried to love his neighbor, love his enemy, be at peace, be in union with creation. And, you know, if some people say, oh, if everybody did that, you know, we wouldn't have a society, you know. I suppose that's true, but and maybe there's different ways. But I just appreciated his fearlessness. I'd be afraid to give away everything I had and just live on the street. So I don't know that that's my call. I don't really feel God calling me to do that. But I bet you there's lots of other things. There's a Nikos Kazantzakis novel about St. Francis. So it's fictionalized. It's just imagining. But he's talking to his brothers, and he says, whatever you fear most, that's the will of God for you. And I always remember that because it haunts me. Because who wants to do what they fear most? That's why we fear it, because we don't want to do it. But there's some wisdom in that, just kind of moving toward our fear and trying to move through it and to face our fears. Maybe it's a one-way ticket to being miserable all our lives, and maybe it's a way to greater freedom. So even though Francis didn't write the prayer of St. Francis, let's close with the prayer of St. Francis. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is injury or pardon, Lord, and where there's doubt, true faith in you. O Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving of ourselves that we receive, and in dying that we're born to eternal life. I missed a verse in there, but that's very good. We got some fishers here, so that's pretty cool. Hey, I hope you have a great night. God bless all of you on this beautiful autumn day. There's a seagull flying away.